All right, back on the morning drive on this Tuesday morning. 2411059 is our number. We have certain subjects that are of interest to everyone, and one of those subjects is the financial picture, and we have two gentlemen in studio with us this morning to talk about that, things that you need to be aware of, and some possible solutions if you're in financial dire straits, which is always good to have. From Kelly Levitt and Blakey here in studio with us, we have Tom Levitt, Charles Farrell. Guys, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Chris.
Good to see you both. We appreciate you being here. And, a lot of situations that come up. Tom, I'll start with you. A lot of things that Kelly Levitt and Blakey that you guys see when it comes to people dealing with debt. And I know that's what you deal with every day. But people accumulate debt for a variety of reasons. And with the down economy, I know you're starting to see more and more people do it in certain ways.
The debt problem is a serious problem. Anybody that experiences that goes through the daily routine of not knowing where they're going to have the money to make their bill payments the next month knows what I'm talking about. What we do at our law firm is we provide a solution to that problem in certain circumstances. We're a bankruptcy law firm. We are a debt relief law firm, and we can help people in most instances who are dealing with that type of overwhelming debt problem.
And because I know what you've see a lot of now are people who simply get that credit card and start piling it up. And I know it is interesting. You said one of the big factors right now are the high gas prices. That really changes the scope of things.
It is. Every family's on a budget. Every family has a fixed amount of income. And as the expenses go up, whether it be for gas, groceries, clothes, other expenses, rent, house payments, and so on, then that dollar can only go so far. When you reach the point where your expenses exceed that income, then you've got a problem. You can reduce your expenses. You can try and increase your income. Those are natural things that you should do. But when those don't work, then sometimes bankruptcy may be an answer to try and start over or restart your financial situation.
Again, Tom Levitt and Charles Farrell joining us this morning. Charles, when people hear sometimes bankruptcy, they think, oh, no, and it has that stigma to it. I know you run into that a lot, but sometimes it may not be what people think it is.
Well, that's very true. Years and years ago, I think they tried to attach this stigma to it. They used to run your name in the newspaper and all that kind of stuff. They don't do that anymore. I think what people need to understand that bankruptcy actually comes from a moral code that we should help out those that are less fortunate than ourselves, and that, in our economy where we encourage people to take risks and to take on burdens, that some people are going to get, bow down under too much weight. And to stimulate the economy, you have to lift those burdens off of them so that they can get back out there and contribute once again.
Exactly, and do that in a responsible way where they can get positioned to pay back their creditors. You're not talking about skimping out of what you owe, just being able to start paying it back.
Exactly. I mean, that's the whole idea behind bankruptcy, especially Chapter 13, which is, to design a fair process where the creditors can come to a table and agree to a plan that is basically fair to everybody.
Exactly. It's just like any other type of negotiation. You wouldn't want to go into it without proper representation, and the same thing, I guess, holds true for bankruptcy, Tom.
That's true, and let me put a little meat on that bone that Charles is talking about. In a Chapter 13 case, you can take your credit card debt, your car payment, your truck payment, your furniture payment, even house payments that are past due. Take that debt, put it into a single payment where you file a plan in the court. Those debts are all included, and you make a monthly payment that addresses and pays some or even all of those things that you have to pay. You can spread that out over a 3 to 5 year payment plan, and there are some Chapter 13 cases where all the debt is repaid. It's just at a lower monthly payment than what you had before you filed your bankruptcy case.
Again, what we're talking about is options, it sounds like, and the different people have, I think, maybe more options than they think they have, but also it's very easy to get into a predicament where things just kind of snowball, and you can go down the wrong road and really multiply your problem many times over simply by just not being smart about it.
Well, that's true, and that's part of the reason why we always recommend to folks that you do speak to an attorney, and that's why we do free consultations, because when you're dealing with these sort of issues and you're trying to come up with a plan as to how you might reorganize and get some relief, you need a creative and comprehensive solution to that. So you really do need to sit down and speak to someone who deals with that process on a day-to-day basis.
And a lot of times, again, we're speaking this morning with Tom Levitt and Charles Farrell. They're from Kelly, Levitt, and Blakey. They have offices here in Valdosta, 2912 North Oak Street. They also have an office in Albany. And whenever it comes to when people say debt relief, they hear a lot of things. Get your credit fixed now, and this kind of thing on the infomercials at 2 in the morning or whatever it is. And oftentimes that's another way for people can get themselves into trouble by following the advice of people who they don't have maybe their best interest at heart.
Well, that's true. People that are in having financial difficulty, they're looking for help. They need a hand up, and they need some solution to a very real problem. Some of those solutions you mentioned, but a lot of times the companies or service providers who are advertising debt relief help, they're not really giving you the right kind of help. What I would encourage somebody to do if you're having debt problems, to look at all your options. One option should be bankruptcy, and as Charles said, we meet with people free of charge. We need a credit report, or we'll get a credit report at our office for $20 is what that takes, and we will sit down with that person, go through all of their debt issues, and offer every possible solution that we can think of, bankruptcy and non-bankruptcy, and try and help someone the best that we can.
Are people surprised, Tom, let me ask you, by some of the options that you present to them? Because I'm assuming now from the outside looking in that people may come to you and just think, this probably isn't going to work.
We have all types of folks that we see, all different problems. Everybody has a different situation. We have the experience. I've been doing this for more than 20 years, and I've seen it all. We have lots of different situations, and every one requires a little different outlook and different advice on what to do to solve the problem. Bankruptcy is not the cure-all for every financial problem, but it is for many. What you should do is consider all your options, and that would be one of them.
And again, just for informational purposes, Charles, there are different types of bankruptcy. It's not, as Tom mentioned, not one single situation for every certain person, but there are different things, different avenues you can go down, even with including bankruptcy.
Well, that's very true. There are different kinds of solutions to the financial difficulties that people are running into. For most individuals, you're thinking of one of two kinds of bankruptcy, either a Chapter 7, which is what most people think of when they hear the word bankruptcy, which is a liquidation, although most Chapter 7s are no asset cases, which means there's really nothing to liquidate, which is really aimed at wiping out unsecured debt, your credit cards, your medical bills, those kind of things that are bowing a lot of people down right now. And then there's Chapter 13, which Tom was touching on, which is basically a debt consolidation through the bankruptcy code, where you may be still wiping out that unsecured debt, but you might also be focusing on catching up your house payment, paying your car, perhaps lowering the interest rate on it, saving some money there, basically restructuring that contract, paying tax debt off, perhaps even lien stripping tax liens that they may have against you. So it depends really on your individual situation, which is, again, I always tell folks, if you're considering your options, we meet with folks every day, Tom and I, for free. The initial consultations are free, where we come in, sit down, and let us give you our opinion based on our experience with this process as to whether we think it would be a good idea for you. And like Tom said, bankruptcy is not for everyone. We have folks that come in where we say, look, you're not getting enough bang for your buck. There's better solutions than to consider a bankruptcy. But for a lot of folks, bankruptcy is their only way out. And, the difference is between it and those late night TV commercials you see is that, the bankruptcy code actually has some teeth to it. It's backed by the federal court. You can actually, propose a plan and draw those creditors in so that they have to come to the table. Whereas, if you're dealing with, one of these late night companies, not only do the creditors not have to come to the table, they can refuse to deal with those companies. But what I've seen in the last year is just a dramatic rise in scam companies that take people's money, don't negotiate anything for them, and meanwhile the people are still getting sued. They're still getting their harassing calls, and they have all those problems, and yet they've paid all this money, and there's no oversight. At least with what we do, there is oversight, and the creditors are locked in once that plan is confirmed.
Yeah, the old saying comes to mind: if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So, Tom, this is the time of year as we have the holidays, which seemingly just left us, but are now right around the corner once again. And I know this is the time of year where a lot of people, if they're not careful, can really get into a lot of trouble when it comes to credit cards and that type of thing.
That's true, Chris. It's all about budget. You cannot spend more money than you can pay back. And if you exceed or violate that rule, then you can be in hot water.
And I know a lot of people have the mindset, well, but I've got a credit card, Tom. If I put it on this, I can pay it all back later on, and that later on mentality is what gets a lot of folks in trouble.
Well, it is. It's the kick the can down the road problem, and if you don't plan ahead for that and you don't have some means to pay that bill when it comes due, then it's going to be pretty tough.
And as easy as that sounds, and I know our leaders in Washington can't follow that advice, so I guess it maybe sounds like it's too much to ask for regular people to follow that as well. But as easy of a formula as that sounds like, you still see it time and time again where people do just what you're saying, kick that can down the road.
Yes, but it's more than that, because a lot of the clients that we see that we help file bankruptcy for, it's not their fault in many instances. For example, a lot of people have a loss of income where you have two spouses working, and more now than ever, you have a loss of income or reduced income from one spouse or both spouses. That can be devastating to a household where the household income may be cut in half for that reason. There are also many people who are hurt or become injured or ill that they can't work. Their income is decreased for that reason.
And that can be sad and frustrating, obviously, for those families. And a lot of those families feel desperate and they have no way out. And that's what we're talking about, is that bankruptcy can be an option, Charles, and a viable option for those folks.
Well, it's very true, and too, going back to a little bit of what Tom was saying is so many of our clients do that, where they just have barely enough income to cover their basic expenses, and so they really are, to a certain extent, living off their credit cards. And what most people nowadays seem to fail to realize is that the credit industry has changed. The credit card industry used to be based on charging a fair interest rate for money borrowed, and now it's the credit industry really wants to keep you on the edge, because where they make their profit is off of late fees, penalties, raising your interest rate to 29% so that you can never pay it back. And just those things alone, late fees, penalties, the interest rate is a multi-billion with a B dollar industry for those corporations. So they really don't want you to catch up.
That's right.
They want to keep you in a situation where you're drowning. I mean, you really are in over your head.
And that's when you can find an option that doesn't. Again, read that fine print on those credit cards, because I know if it's that first late payment, then that interest rate goes from what sounded pretty good to start off with to astronomical, and that's just where they're bleeding you.
Yeah.
So
if you watch what you're doing, credit cards can be a great thing. They can be a great way to rebuild your credit score after a bankruptcy. If you're very diligent, if you're very proactive, if you watch what you're doing, you watch how much debt you incur, watch your interest rate, make sure that you don't overextend yourself. But the problem is that you see so many people that are suffering due to a loss of income, a loss of their job, they can't afford their house payment, so they're throwing every money at the house, and they're having to use the credit cards to buy the food.
Sure.
That they get really buried under, and they need something to take that burden off of them in order to focus on their priorities. And when we talk about that, it's a daily conversation that we have with folks when they come in is look, really, what are your priorities in this? What are we trying to accomplish? Is it the home that we're focusing on? Do we need to catch up the mortgage? Is it the vehicle that you have? What kind of interest rate do you have? Can we bring that interest rate down so that it's something that you can keep the car and still let that creditor get repaid, let them get a fair interest rate, right, but not skin you alive like they might have done originally.
Right.
So again, it's sort of trying to bring everybody to the table and come up with a fair resolution for everybody.
Again, Tom Lovett and Charles Farrell joining us. About 2 minutes left, guys. I want to ask you, because the problem of foreclosure seems to be continuing. One time, we see it all the time in the newspaper, those listings and the tax liens. I keep hoping that will become smaller and smaller, but it just hasn't happened yet.
I think that's true. Foreclosures are a unique problem, one that we deal with regularly. A foreclosure of a residence can be devastating to a family because you're going to lose your home. One thing that we do in our practice is offer a way to stop a foreclosure as long as you have the ability to catch up the payments that are past due and continue or resume making the regular monthly house or mortgage payment. That's a Chapter 13 plan that we file all the time. You have 5 years under the bankruptcy law to catch up payments that are past due. These can be past due payments, late fees, attorney fees, even escrow payments that have to be caught up for insurance and taxes that are owed. And that may be one way that somebody would need to look at if they're in a foreclosure or facing a foreclosure, and we'd be glad to talk to them about that. Chris, we also have a lot of information about that on our website, which is bankruptcyga.com, and your listeners should go there and take a look at it, and there is some good information to be had.
Absolutely. Let that be your first step. And again, if that helps you out in your problem, give them a call at Kelly Blackley, Levitt and Blackie at, again, 2912 North Oak Street. Guys, real quick, the phone number they can get in touch with you at?
Our phone number is 229-242-8838.
Give them a call. They have free consultation. They can take a look and see what your situation is. Everybody's situation is a little bit different. So if you hear your brother say, well, this is what I did, or somebody down at the your job say, well, this is what they did, that may be a little bit different for you. So go out and check with them. They can provide you the correct information to get you started on the path to recovering and repairing your debt. And folks, you know, if your air conditioning breaks, you don't try to fix it yourself. If your car breaks down, you don't fix it yourself. If your debt's and your credit's in trouble, don't try to fix it yourself either. There are people out there who been doing this for a lot of years, and Charles and Tom are two great examples of that, and they can get you started back on the right road to recovery. So, guys, we appreciate your information this morning. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.